because of the frustrations that this offense has caused this season. Many Rangers fans are saying to us in our chat and on our Twitter notifications, it's time to sell. The reality is they really can't. John Radigan here with Jeff Wilson. I mean, it's one thing to say that. It sounds great. That's what teams do sometimes.
Yeah.
With these salaries, they're not trading most of these pieces away. They don't want to, and they can't.
Yeah, that made me think of Caddyshack, where they're about to have the big match at the end, and Al's on his phone saying, "They're all buying. Well, sell. They're all selling. Well, buy." The Rangers don't have a lot to sell.
No,
and if it keeps up like this, you're not gonna be able to trade Marcus Semien.
Nope.
Maybe you could trade Adolis Garcia because he has another year of control next year. Maybe. In anybody who's on an expiring contract, but the Rangers don't have a lot of those on the position player side. Pitching side, okay, does Tyler Mahle do you any good if you're 10 games below 500 on July 31st? You probably could get something for him. Maybe John Gray, if he's shown well back off the injured list, and can try to dump some of his $14 million salary. But what are you going to do with that money? You're just going to save it. Try to line something up for the next off season, and that's probably where the work would be done. Where the Rangers would try to, if they think that Marcus Semien cannot be a productive player anymore, try to unload some of that salary. But you're gonna have to eat a lot of it too. And I just can't see them doing that. They're not gonna trade DeGrom. They're not gonna trade Eovaldi because they're still gonna have, and Chris Young's always gonna have, I think, World Series aspirations.
Sure.
He feels like the team that they've put together is World Series caliber. And obviously, so far, that just hasn't been the case. The pitching staff, yes. Our starting rotation, yes. There'd be a lot of relievers on one of your deals you could dump too. But again, you're not. I don't know that you're going to get back like elite level talent either. Are you going to get an elite prospect for Tyler Mahle?
Not sure.
I'm not sure.
Mm-mm.
Maybe,
especially not. Maybe if you had a year and the trade deadline in control, but you don't.
Yeah. So I'm not. I just think it's way too premature. Again, there's 2 months until the trade deadline. A lot can happen in a baseball season in 2 months, and we saw last year that the Rangers were 7.5 out maybe of the wild card, 5.5 out of the wild card, something like that at the trade deadline. And they added help.
Yep.
They didn't add significant help, in a backup catcher and a left-handed reliever, but they, Chris Young just believes it. And talking to him the other day, he feels like the American League is wide open. You look at the East, there's one team above 500.
Yeah.
The Central, there are 4 teams, and then the West, there are 2 teams, but the Astros are barely above 500.
Yeah.
It's not like the Rangers are 15 games out.
No,
they're 5 games out.
Yeah.
So I think that with all that said, and the second wild card team, the advent of that, a lot more teams are not selling at the deadline. And as Chris Young said during the offseason, he said it to me again Monday, the best thing that the Rangers can do to get better is for their own guys to get better. It's just figuring out how to do that. Kind of looking at the hitters market, I'm not sure there are a ton of great hitters out there that are going to be difference makers. And, the Rangers farm system, while it has a lot of lower level talent, doesn't have a lot of premier talent at the top outside of Sebastian Walcott. So are you going to trade Sebastian Walcott? Hell no, you're not.
No.
So I just don't know that trading, trying to get help is going to happen with a big name. Maybe there's a targeted thing they can do to help him against left-handers. Maybe a right-handed hitting outfielder is available who could be like Robbie Grossman was in 23, and they had hoped he would be in 24, and really he kind of was. He was really good against left-handers again last year. It would be that kind of move. There's not going to be they're not going to trade for Juan Soto, or some huge impact bat. A, I don't know that there is one, and B, I just don't think that's what the Rangers want to do. They want their guys that they have to live up to the terms of their contract. And if they can't do it, the offseason was going to be interesting. If this team doesn't live up to expectations, the offseason is going to be very interesting with this team.
Yes, it will. In the meantime, too much of the first 57, 60 games were played without Corey Seager. That said, they were 5 games over 500 when Corey played, and they averaged 3.85 runs per game. They were 8 games under 500 when Corey didn't play, and they averaged 2.37 runs per game. He's a difference maker. Obviously, earlier in the week, he came back and didn't make that much of a difference in one game. He will make a difference.
100% he will. The players believe that, the manager believes that, and of course, everybody has to be better. But what Corey does, if a pitcher wants to pitch around him, he'll take his walk, and the guy behind him might do something. And so there's your extra run. Maybe the guy behind him hits a 2-run homer, or puts a ball in the gap and gets Corey to third, and then somebody can hit a sacrifice fly deep enough for Corey and his gippy hamstrings trot home. I thought it was interesting talking to Corey about not necessarily his impact on the team, but how he has really gone out of his way to try to make the hamstring issue a non-issue. He went so far out of his way as to go to Madison, Wisconsin, to see an expert in muscle care or muscle management, something to that extent, somebody who's been successful working with athletes in the past, to help Corey maybe change his routine a little bit, to isolate something that Corey was doing that he could eliminate. Corey's called it direction. He was looking for direction. So this is a guy who's had a ton of success in baseball. He's had some, bad injuries with, he had to have Tommy John surgery. He broke his wrist once getting hit by a pitch, but he's also had 2 hernias. He's had some growing issues. He's had the hamstring issues. And why do these things happen to him? That's the answer he wanted. So he feels like he's in a good place there. But yeah, you got to keep him on the field. And he's hit 30 home runs in all 3 seasons with the Rangers. He's at 6 or 7 right now. 30, he just has to stay in the lineup, and he's going to hit home runs.
Yeah.
So, so if you're worried about the Rangers, we're like, they took him off the IL too soon this time. They probably did the first time. I think in hindsight, they will admit, we rushed him back. He was only about 85% the first time, which would have been late or earlier this month,
May,
when they brought him off, May 3rd. So this time he missed 16 games while on the IL. Bruce Bochy said he's as close to 100% as you can get. Corey said he's absolutely in a better spot than he was the first time he came off. So you feel good about that. But man, it's the guys around him have to do something, and he can impact that by the way the guys ahead of him are pitched and the way the guys behind him are pitched. And it's an impact bat, not just because of what it does when he hits the ball, but the effect he can have on the rest of the lineup.
Interesting, the team was 8-8 in the 16 games he missed in the second stint on the injured list. So most of the problems they had were actually from his first and somewhat shorter stint on that disabled or injured list, as we call it now. And they basically were 8-8 in spite of the fact that Marcus Semien might be in the midst of his worst month ever in baseball.
It's pretty dreadful. It's just adding to the woes of his season. The season numbers are bad enough. 173. His OPS is 485.
Right.
And for those who want to take OPS a little bit further with OPS plus, it's 44.
Oh my!
League average is 100. Fangraphs has a stat. It's called offense. Their offense stat. He's the second worst player in baseball, judging by that stat. And you kind of look around. It's like, well, why? And you kind of talked about this on the postgame show, the work that Dave Raymond had done, looking at the stats and everything. If you want to look at one stat, it's his bat speed. It's below league average. So he's not hitting the ball as hard. And we talked to him about, hey, you're hitting the ball the other way. He's like, well, that's more a byproduct of where I'm being pitched. The thing is, Corey Seager's power is not at all to right field. You look at his home runs and his home run spray chart, they're all pulls pretty much, center field and to the left. And a lot of times it's right down the line. And he's not hitting like 450 footers either. He doesn't have that in him. He hits balls that just sneak over the wall, get a few rows in. They go far enough, but he just hasn't done that. After the Blue Jays series, 3 home runs this season, 1 double. That's a shocker.
Unbelievable.
And he is leading the team in walks, so that's a good thing. And that's probably his redeeming offensive quality. The defense is there, and that's why he's playing. But yeah, it's just been a nightmare, especially for a guy who's making $26 million this year and who still has 3 years left on his contract. It's a potential situation here facing the Rangers, what to do with him long term. And I really don't know. I really don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
That one.
In a conversation I had with Brett Boone earlier this week, it sounded to me as though the guy there, he personally is working the hardest on is Semien. And I think there's some obvious reasons for that. They're both second basemen, right? Mm-hmm. Boone identifies with a guy like that. But also, at this point, Marcus needs the most attention and the most work. It's just, you got to figure out what happened. I just don't believe Father Time has completely caught up with him in the matter of, 16, 17 months.
Yeah, and in this era, it is hard to hit, and he's not the only big name player who's struggling, has an average around 200 or below. Christian Yelich, for instance, a former MVP, is batting below 200 so far this season. So there are guys out there who are struggling, but they're also more productive, just all around, whether they're hitting for power or stealing bases or getting on somehow. It's a stunning turnaround for a guy who, again, in 23 finished third in American League MVP voting behind Shohei Ohtani and his teammate Corey Seager. I just can't. It's frustrating. It's frustrating, and you feel for the guy because he does work hard and he is a good person and he's a quality character guy, a leader. Works hard. Does everything right. It's just not working, and it hasn't worked really. Last season he hit 237 with a 699 OPS. Okay, but that's still a decline, and that's not what you are paying that kind of money for. No. He needs to be a better player. He knows it, and they're working on it.
It's all they can do. The good news, as we mentioned earlier in this segment, the fact that Corey Seager is back, that makes everybody better. We'll keep our fingers crossed that it makes Marcus Semien better as well. So that'll do it for us from here in the All DLLS Sports Studios. But we appreciate you checking us out, hanging out with us. We're here pretty much every day at 1 or right after the Rangers game on Getaway Day. We're talking Rangers baseball for you and with you on DLLS. See you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.